Hello everybody! There has been some insane news today, which I'm pretty sure everybody has heard about at this point, because it is, I would say, one of the biggest news stories in the last decade in the games industry, which is that Activision Blizzard has been purchased by Microsoft for $68.7 billion. That's a big number. We're going to talk about that. I have a lot of notes, and I'm going to go through this because I feel like I have a slightly different perspective than a lot of people. I know for some there's some concern over monopolization over the games industry because, you know, Microsoft is just going around buying up all these major studios like Bethesda, for example. And now Activision Blizzard, which is a much bigger purchase than you might expect when I go through the details here. But the fact of the matter is, they're doing what they need to do to survive. And whether you think that that's a corporate, a corporate thing or not, then that's totally your own perspective. But when it comes to business deals, like this is what businesses do. We can't expect anything different from them. You can't be like, hey, giant business with billions and billions and billions of money to just throw around. Don't go buy other studios. Let them be. No, of course they're going to go buy other studios because they want to make more money, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And at the same time, they announced that Game Pass has now reached 25 million subscribers, which honestly is pretty good. That's insanely good. They're making a bunch of money off of Game Pass, and they should, because Game Pass is an incredible deal, and I think everybody should consider getting Game Pass, especially if you have an Xbox or a PC. And if it ever comes to the other consoles, well then, it's just easy peasy. I mean, you got like the cloud gaming thing, but we're not going to get into that today. So let's go over some of my notes. I think that in general, this deal is going to be a very good thing for a lot of different reasons. I see the concern, and I agree with the concern. I also think that there's more good here than there is potential abuse, and especially considering the history that Microsoft has with acquiring, or the Xbox Studios has with acquiring all of these other studios, because you have like Obsidian or Bethesda Studios, or oh goodness, what was another one? Double Fine, stuff like that, where everybody who's been acquired has nothing but good to say about the process. They're like, this is great. It takes a huge weight off of our shoulders if it's a smaller studio, for sure, because they don't have to worry about, acquiring funding and whatnot. They don't have to worry about pressure from corporate oversight or anything like that. It's just like they're being told, hey, go make these cool games and do it, and just do it. Go have fun and don't have all this pressure on you. And as it turns out, when you do that, you get much better games out of the process. And and I think that the best part about that is everybody universally says that the process is awesome. The transition is super smooth, and the culture that comes out of that with the studio and the games that come out of those studios just reach a whole different level because of the way that everything goes. Now, statistically speaking, or let's say monetarily speaking, let's compare this to some of the other big things that have happened in the industry and outside of the industry as far as acquisitions are concerned. So let me reiterate that Microsoft purchased Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. They recently bought Bethesda, if you'll remember, for $7.5 billion. And I remember thinking how crazy that was. I was like, that's so much money. Why would you? Then if you go outside of our industry for an even more insane comparison, Disney bought Star Wars for $4.05 billion. So $4 billion compared to almost $70 billion. And Disney, without a doubt, has more than made up that money, like tenfold, over and over and over again, between all the different movies and things like The Mandalorian and pushing people to Disney Plus for Book of Boba Fett and all of the new Star Wars series that are coming out and all of the stuff with the High Republic that has been coming out, and just like they're making crazy money off of Star Wars, and they only paid $4 billion for it. Microsoft just purchased this crazy amount of companies for $68.7 billion. Let's talk about those companies for a moment. Obviously, it includes, you know, when you say Activision Blizzard, it's more than just that. That is like the corporate tag. What is under that? Well, you have Activision, obviously, and you have Blizzard, obviously. Now, those two are two very separate companies. You've got, you know, Call of Duty and whatnot, Tony Hawk and all that under, you know, Activision. You got Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, Overwatch, all that stuff under Blizzard. You got King, which, believe it or not, is a massive company. Then the smaller studios are Treyarch, Raven, High Moon, Beanox, Sledgehammer Games, Infinity Ward, Demonware, Toys for Bob, and indeed Major League Gaming. And that was one of the ones that threw me off, because I was like, oh right, yeah, Blizzard did buy those out, and that's why they were doing like the Overwatch League and everything, and yeah, and that's, you know, it's been relatively successful as far as, you know, an esport can be concerned. But it's funny when you realize how many other studios are included in this. Also, here's the thing that needs to be noted. From now on, all Activision Blizzard games are going to be available on Game Pass, including launch day games. So like Diablo 4 is going to come out. You're going to be able to play it on Game Pass. You're going to be able to boot up your Xbox or your PC, depending on if you have PC Game Pass or, you know, Game Pass Ultimate, which gives you both, just, you know, the Xbox one. You'll be able to play those on launch day without having to pay for the game just because you have Game Pass. Also, studios are going to operate with business as usual at the moment, even though the acquisition is happening. It's going to take some time for the process to be approved, because, you know, government officials need to make sure that you know, a massive monopoly isn't taking place. It's fairly rare for these things to be blocked, but they just want to, you know, make sure of it. Is the same kind of you know, warning was put out for the Bethesda acquisition. It's like they may get turned down. It's still a possibility, but it's possible that it's going to take all the way through 2023 in order for this to happen. So there's some time for the transition to slowly happen, but the studios are going to continue to operate as business as usual for the time being. The big exception here is that once the acquisition is like confirmed and complete, Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, is then going to be the acting CEO for all of those studios. And current CEO and absolute garbage can on fire at the moment, Bobby Kotick, who many want to be thrown out of the company for all of the culture stuff going on at Activision Blizzard, he's going to be gone. He will no longer be CEO, and from sources that have reported this, they say that he is not going to be a part of the company anymore. So he's basically being bought out and kicked out, which, fine, whatever. It sucks that he's getting a huge payday from this, but at the same time, get rid of him. He doesn't need to be there anymore. Nothing but bad stuff has happened under his lead, because, you know, we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, that's like the general overarching information that you need to know. All Activision Blizzard games are going to be on Game Pass now, including launch day games, which is crazy. Studios are going to continue to operate business as usual, so like there's no big changes happening right now. And then once the buyout is complete, Phil Spencer will become CEO over all of those studios. Okay, so from what I have discussed with people within the company, within Blizzard, I should specify, within Blizzard, and then other people who are peers of mine, it seems that everybody is optimistic about the changes that will eventually take place. So let's dive into that a little bit, because right now studio culture within these studios is fairly bad. Like at Raven, you have a bunch of employees on strike, and they have been for quite a while now, with the layoffs that happened in their QA division. And then, of course, you have all the sexual misconduct allegations throughout Activision Blizzard, including all of the frat boy culture stuff where, there's like drinking in the workplace and whatnot. That stuff has been reported on to death and continues to be something that needs to change, but is eventually changing over time. And it's something I'm very passionate about, and something that I really do hope is able to be rectified with this situation. But when it comes to Microsoft making the change, I think that I don't know. I think that they're gonna be the easiest way to have that change happen, because they're essentially cutting the head off of a Hydra, where they're getting rid of Bobby and whomever else they want right off the top. They could just cut all those heads off and say you're gone. So they're out, and now you have Phil, who is an upstanding guy at the head of the company, with people around him in a diverse situation. If you look at the Microsoft leadership team for Xbox, there's men, there's women, there's minorities, everybody's in there. So unlike in the Activision Blizzard situation, where it's primarily white old men, you have a situation that is not the case anymore, and it's going to be all these people with much different and diverse voices that will help improve the studio cultures. So that's a good thing, and I think that is actually the best reason for this acquisition to happen, is because this other stuff is taking too long to rectify, and it's been nothing but absolute silence from the leadership at the company when it comes to actually making real change and addressing concerns and stuff from the employees that are working there. Right. So that's just something to just say right off the bat. This is a good thing, because that studio culture will change much faster under the umbrella of Microsoft, because they don't want, with the Xbox team, they don't want any of that stuff coming out of their stuff. And in fact, leading up to this, there was the news story that Phil Spencer had put out being like, we're reevaluating our relationship with Activision Blizzard amongst all the scandal stuff going on. And I think that it's really funny that their reevaluation was to buy out the company. And I had this this image in my head of like them being at like a meeting, and you got Phil Spencer and a couple of the other Xbox people in there, and they're all just kind of talking about the situation, being like, yeah, what do we do about this? Like, we can't just stop working with Activision Blizzard because they make huge games, and these huge games, if we're not working with them, are just going to go to PlayStation, and then that throws a bunch of extra money at a competitor, even though there's a whole other thing to be talked about there about having Activision Blizzard in their wheelhouse is very bad for the longevity of PlayStation, and PlayStation needs to start making some moves. But I imagine they're sitting in a conference talking about all this, and someone goes, what are we going to do? Like, we can't just like change the culture. And someone goes, well, what if we can't? What if we just buy them and change it ourselves? That's what I imagine happened. I don't think that is what actually happened, but I find the acquisition monumental and crazy. So hopefully the studio culture changes rapidly once things are in place. The other thing that I want to talk about here is the creative culture. Now, this is something that you don't really understand unless you've worked in game development, which I have, and I can say that this is something that is also very passionate with me, which is that the games that they are working on, that they have, and that they may work on in the future, may all get more time in the oven, per se. They all may get more rope to go out on a ledge without having to feel like they're constantly being strangled by corporate oversight. Activision Blizzard slowly changed over many years, being into a machine that pumps out games rather than slow cookers that make masterpieces. You look at Blizzard games from, the early 2000s, and then slightly after that, you had things like Warcraft 3. You had, obviously you had Diablo 2, in the early 2000s, and that expansion. You had World of Warcraft that came out in 2004. And you had these huge, monumental, beloved games that all came out because the studio was okay with taking their time. And that was one of the reasons why the passion and the creativity came through on those projects. Is because they weren't feeling like they had to just like crunch and get everything done, and that if they didn't do it, their jobs were at stake, because you had this corporate overlord that was constantly slashing at different parts of your business and getting rid of people that were your coworkers, right? Prior to this acquisition, I could tell you for a fact that it's not uncommon for people within the company to fear for their jobs, because they never know when another slash is going to occur and just people are going to disappear. Many employees have been thrown to the side with the desire to make more money by spending less money over the last several years. Remember the 800 people that were laid off in 2019, the beginning of 2019, after setting record financial performance in 2018. And it's not like suddenly they weren't making money anymore. It was just like, in order to be efficient, to get rid of all of this excess spending, let's hack off these heads in community and in esports and in creative positions, and just get rid of all these people, 800 people all at once. And that was a very disappointing moment, and it wasn't the only time it's happened. And unfortunately, it also hasn't just happened in the States. It's also happened with the Versailles office for Blizzard, and that, got axed. Now, fortunately, French law is significantly better on workers than American law. And they all, it sucks that the office was closed, but they all, got a lot more out of it than, say, all of the 800 people that got laid off back in 2019. But, having that kind of stuff happen in the studio makes you fear for your future. It makes you uncertain, and that uncertainty is like a seed of negative creativity, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the result, as we have seen, is games being put out that aren't great, expansions for games being put out that aren't great, content updates being put out that aren't great, that aren't what you expect from a studio that used to be so beloved. And that's a thing that changed over time, and that's a thing that many people have left Activision and Blizzard for, because they couldn't handle it anymore, and they went on to greener pastures. And you have plenty of new studios that have been opened recently. You look at like all of the Dreamhaven stuff with Mike Morhaime under that. Like these are people who want to go make games, like the people at Second Dinner. They want to go make games that they want to make without feeling that corporate pressure, without feeling the pressure of needing money. They just want to sit there and create, because pressure is the antithesis of creativity in a lot of ways. Sure, you can get very creative under pressure, but when you're constantly under pressure, your creativity is strained and you get burnt out, and that's not good for games. But if that culture is improving and things are getting better, let's talk about the current Blizzard titles specifically. I mean, you could talk about Call of Duty and all that stuff all day long, but let's focus on Blizzard stuff, because that's typically what I focus on the channel. Let's start with Diablo. I think with this acquisition, it's kind of business as usual. Diablo 4 was already looking to be shaping up pretty good, despite all of the weird stuff that was happening behind the scenes with like the StarCraft shooter being canceled, and people being moved around, and then like Diablo 4 being rebooted at one point, and then the announcement of Immortal because they didn't have anything. It was just like there was a lot of weird stuff that happened there. But let's look at from a top level. Diablo 4 looks like it's coming together. With this acquisition, it looks like they're going to have less pressure to get it out at a specific time, and I'm okay with the game being delayed as long as it's good. Diablo 2 Resurrected is churning along, and they're putting out actual new content for the first time in forever. So like the PTR actually just went up this last week, and they're going to be testing new rune words and new balance on the game, and it's super exciting. And then Diablo Immortal is coming out this year, and that game is actually fantastic, and it doesn't matter what people try to do when they like go back to the memes of, do you guys even have phones, from the announcement and everything. Those people are out of touch of what has happened in that game and that the news of that game since, the announcement, which is that the game is actually freaking fantastic. I have a bunch of videos on it if you want to go check them out. And it's going to be likely one of the biggest mobile games for quite some time. It's amazing. It's really, really good. It's actually a fantastic Diablo game. And then, of course, you have Diablo 3, where they're just putting seasonal stuff out that's been really cool lately. And, who knows how long that will last. But, with all the other Diablo games, who really cares if we get cool Diablo 4 stuff, Diablo 2 stuff, Diablo Immortal stuff? That's a lot of Diablo to be consuming, and it's something that you can consume on Game Pass, which is crazy. If you have Game Pass, you're going to be able to download Diablo 2 Resurrected and just go play it on your Xbox or on your PC, and that's exciting. Let's move on. So Warcraft Health, I think the team getting more time and funding and direction to create better content is going to be very good for World of Warcraft. I think what they're doing with Classic and the seasonal Classic stuff is super cool, but for future expansions for World of Warcraft, I think that the future is much brighter now that they're setting up a reset for the lore and everything. And with this acquisition, it just kind of solidifies like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's get our stuff together and let's figure this out, because this last couple of years have not been good for World of Warcraft. Also, interesting thing to discuss is the fact that there is a possibility to see World of Warcraft on the Xbox in the future, especially after in patch 9.0.1 they came out with gamepad support. So like that was already implemented, and now they just need to figure out a way of putting it on the console. And imagine a world imagine a world where your Game Pass subscription also gives you a World of Warcraft subscription. Oh, that would be really nice, wouldn't it? That would be really cool, including, PC stuff. So, like, let's assume that the game is available on console at one point, and it is also available on PC, as it already is. My assumption is that those two ecosystems will be separate. You'll have the console ecosystem and then the PC ecosystem, and there will be no crossplay. That is my assumption. Who knows? It all depends on player count at that point. But who knows also as well, maybe a new RTS installment in the Warcraft franchise in the future. That's definitely a possibility now. As far as StarCraft is concerned, it's not dead. I think Microsoft sees the value in games that people really enjoy and are beloved, and like to invest money into those things, despite the genres not necessarily being what everybody wants at the moment, because they know that there is a player base for it, and they know that there's a passion for those games. So we may get a new StarCraft game, sometime in the next, 5 years or sooner, if it happens to be that shooter that they had set aside and canceled, or whatever they ended up doing with it in the background, which apparently, internally everybody really loved. So that's a possibility to get back up and running now, and especially under the leadership with the Xbox team, that I think that they would want a super good sci-fi shooter on the Xbox that isn't just Halo. So I think that might end up being quite cool. And speaking of shooters, you have Overwatch, which, Overwatch 2 is going to come out, and it's going to be big. And Overwatch League will probably see some changes, but overall is going to continue to be exciting for people who really like Overwatch. I think the interesting thing to consider here is that it's possible Overwatch is going to see really big innovations to compete with other shooters on the market. And that may not have happened otherwise, because, look at Call of Duty, for example. It is kind of an iterative game. There's no way to dance around that one. And they just constantly keep releasing very similar products one after another, and they sell like crazy. But, when it comes to innovating on the genre, that is not something they do very often. Even though you look back at the original Call of Duty when it released, and I just remember how innovative, I cannot say that word, that game ended up being. And then you had a bunch of shooters that came out after that, and it was all Call of Duty. Call of Duty changed everything, and then it's been that way ever since. So maybe Overwatch can be that new thing that innovates heavily and creates, just like when the first Overwatch came out, creates a huge zeitgeist that draws a bunch of people in, and then you reinvigorate Overwatch League and whatnot. And I think that that's super cool. And then finally, when it comes to Blizzard games, I mean, you could talk about like some of the classic stuff, like let's get a new Lost Vikings or whatever. That's fine and exciting in many ways. But think about this: Heroes of the Storm has been in maintenance mode since they took like the vast majority of the people off that team. What if Microsoft foresees a world where if they inject the proper people and resources into that game, that it could compete with League of Legends' success? And I think that given a proper plan, especially one that includes console play, that might be a huge possibility. Because as it stands, Heroes of the Storm is actually a really fantastic MOBA. And is actually one of the best ones out there, especially gameplay-wise. But, you have the people who are anchored in Dota and who are anchored in League of Legends, and you have to find a way to kind of fish them over into your pond. And I think if anybody could do it, it would be the Xbox team and Blizzard combining their efforts to get that going. So Heroes of the Storm may not be dead, and that is really exciting because I actually really, really, really love that game. Finally, let's talk about how this affects future games. Maybe new things that haven't even been announced or new things that haven't been imagined yet. So, obviously, you look at the Activision side of things, and we've got Crash and Spyro, and, Crash is fun and great, and there's a new one, but what if there's more new Crash games? And what if we start, taking the 3D platformer and heavily innovating on it? And then we start getting new Spyro games. And the funniest part about that is Spyro and Crash used to be PlayStation mascots, and now they're owned by Xbox. And it's very possible that we have a future where Xbox is publishing these games, and they are fantastic games, and they're showing them off on like a press event, just like PlayStation would back in the day on their stages. And it's like now it's on an Xbox stage for Spyro and Crash. I don't foresee a world where those will ever be platform exclusive, though. I think that they will also still come out on all of the other platforms. Nintendo Switch, for sure, that's a huge market. Then you also have PlayStation and all that. So I'm looking forward to a world in which we get those, or a new good Tony Hawk Pro Skater, because of course that's under Activision as well. Or how about this? Let's stop looking back. Let's look forward. What is going to be the next new big IP that we've never seen before coming out of Blizzard? The last time someone asked that question, despite rising from the ashes of a failed project, Overwatch was birthed. And when I still get chills when I think about the announcement of Overwatch at BlizzCon, and just coming out of that actually incredible announcement trailer, and seeing parts of the team just like in tears, or seeing like just the excitement from the crowd, and just the pain that it took to get to that point. Let's forget all the pain stuff, and let's make an IP that makes that kind of splash again. I think it's possible, and that is what gets me super excited. In a world where you have creative people, extremely creative people and talented people creating the things that they love, you're going to get awesome products. And you've had these creative people strangled by money people for the last decade, and it's time that ended. And that is what I'm excited about. I'm excited about what comes that we don't know about, what comes that hasn't ever been thought of before from these people who are genuinely some of the best in the business. You still have long-standing people at Blizzard who honestly should have left a long time ago. Not because they need to leave, but because they deserve something better than what they've been getting this last decade. And I think that with that, with the injection of all this excitement over the Microsoft stuff, injecting like straight into their passion, I think that you're going to find some incredibly creative stuff coming out over the next 5, 6, 8 years, and new IPs being birthed that are going to completely shake the foundations of the games industry, which is scary for PlayStation because they haven't made any big moves in a while as far as studio acquisitions, and they kind of need to after this one. What's left? Not a lot. And you have a handful of other big publishers that are in the middle of making a lot of stuff. Riot is making a lot of splashes and whatnot, but with Microsoft acquiring all of these crazy good studios, I think we're going to see some excellent games over the next 10 years, and I cannot wait to see what those are. So let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. What are your thoughts on the acquisition? Is it a corporate greed? Is it incredible for the people working, in the studios to change up culture? Is it good for games? Like, what are your thoughts? What games would you like to see made, or what changes would you like to see made in these companies? Because I think that, honestly, the whole world is their oyster at this point, and I think the Microsoft Xbox team is gonna crush it, and I can't wait to I guess I'm starting up my Game Pass show again, because that was something that was already on my mind, and now it just seems logical. Like, it's a perfect time to be like, all right, I guess Xbox Game Pass, which was already the best deal in gaming, is now just solidified as gonna be the best deal in gaming forever, and there's no getting away from it. So yeah, let's dive back into the Game Pass. With all that said, thank you guys for watching, and we shall see you all next time.